Have you ever wondered what freedom really feels like? Not the kind that comes with vacations or weekends off, but the kind where you wake up and the weight of "how will I afford it" is gone. Imagine that moment. The morning sun touches your face. There's no rush, no panic, no silent dread. Only choice. Only calm, only peace. This isn't a dream. It's not a lottery ticket. It's a path. A blueprint that's been waiting for you all along. Financial freedom isn't about having millions. It's about never again being controlled by fear, scarcity, or the endless chase for enough. You're about to begin a journey, 7 steps, that will change how you see money, time, and yourself. A journey from survival to stability, to abundance. So take a deep breath, because by the time you reach the end of this audiobook, you won't just understand wealth, you'll become it. Chapter 1. The Awakening, Money as a Mirror. Close your eyes for a moment, and imagine standing in front of a mirror. Not the kind that shows your reflection, but the kind that reveals your truth. What do you see? Do you see confidence, control, peace, or do you see worry, scarcity, and the quiet fear that there will never be enough? The truth is, money doesn't just buy things, it shows things. It reflects who we are, what we believe, what we fear, and what we think we deserve. Most people never see that mirror clearly. They chase paychecks and promotions, they spend and save, but deep down they're wrestling with something bigger, a belief. A belief that says, "I'm always behind." A belief that says, "I can't get ahead." A belief that says, "Maybe freedom just isn't for me." But what if that's not true? What if financial freedom isn't something distant or reserved for a lucky few? What if it begins the moment you decide to see money not as your master, but as your mirror? You see, the world teaches us that money is external, numbers in a bank, digits on a screen, pieces of paper, but in reality, money is emotional energy. It's a living reflection of how we value ourselves and how we relate to the world around us. Think about it. If you've ever found yourself working harder, yet feeling stuck, if you've ever earned more, yet somehow had less, if you've ever felt guilty for wanting more or anxious about spending, then you've already experienced how deeply emotional money really is. The first step toward financial freedom isn't a budget, or an investment strategy, or a side hustle. It's awareness. It's realizing that your financial life is a mirror of your inner life. If you believe you're not enough, your money will always seem to vanish. If you believe you're unworthy of abundance, you'll unconsciously push it away. But if you start to believe, truly believe that you are capable, deserving, and ready to grow, then something begins to shift. The mirror changes, and once the mirror changes, everything else follows. There's a story I want you to remember. A man once worked tirelessly, day and night, believing that if he just made a little more, he'd finally feel free. He earned promotions, moved into a bigger home, upgraded his car, and yet the anxiety never left. It followed him from paycheck to paycheck, like a shadow, until one day he sat in silence and asked himself, "What am I really chasing?" And in that moment he realized he wasn't chasing money. He was chasing safety. He was chasing worth. He was chasing the feeling that he was finally okay. That was his awakening. And it can be yours too. The path to financial freedom begins not with a calculator, but with a question. What does money mean to me? Maybe for you money means survival. Maybe it means independence, or power, or security. Or maybe deep down it means love. Because for many money became the symbol of acceptance, the sign that we've made it, that we're valued, that we matter. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Money doesn't give you worth. It only amplifies what's already there. If you feel abundant within, your external world will rise to meet that belief. If you live from scarcity, the world will mirror scarcity back to you. This is not philosophy, it's psychology, it's energy, it's truth. You and your money are in constant conversation. Every purchase, every saving decision, every hesitation, they're all expressions of what you believe about yourself. When you spend impulsively, maybe you're saying, "I need this to feel better." When you hoard money in fear, maybe you're saying, "I don't trust that more will come." When you invest, When you give, when you manage wisely, you're saying, I trust myself, I trust life. That's where financial freedom truly begins, in trust. Trust that you are not behind. Trust that there's enough to go around. Trust that you have the ability to create, to attract, to manage, and to grow wealth in a way that aligns with your values. Because wealth isn't just about having more, it's about becoming more. When you build confidence, when you develop discipline, when you cultivate patience and vision, money becomes the side effect of who you're becoming. You are the foundation of your financial life. And if that foundation is fear, the house will always shake. But if that foundation is clarity and self-worth, the structure stands strong, no matter what storms may come. So right now, take a breath. Not just a shallow one, a deep one, the kind that makes your shoulders drop and your chest expand. You are not your financial mistake. You are not your debt, your credit score, or your income. You are potential. You are resourcefulness in human form. You are capable of rewriting every story you've ever told yourself about money. Starting today, this is your awakening, the moment where you begin to see that financial freedom isn't something you achieve one day far away. It's something you step into the moment you decide to take responsibility for your relationship with money. Because once you stop seeing money as something out there, and start seeing it as something in here, the power shifts back to you. You stop chasing. You start creating. So here's your challenge. Before you move on to the next chapter, take one quiet moment and reflect. Ask yourself, without judgment, what does my current financial situation say about what I believe? Where have I been operating from fear, and where have I been acting from trust? Awareness doesn't solve everything, but it unlocks everything. Once you see the truth, you can't unsee it, and that's a good thing. Because awareness leads to clarity. Clarity leads to power. And power, the kind that comes from within, leads to freedom. You're at the threshold of that freedom now. The mirror is clear, the reflection is on, and for the first time, you're beginning to see not just what money means to you, but what you mean to money. In the next chapter, we'll build on this awakening. We'll shift from awareness to intention, from reflection to design. Because once you've seen yourself clearly, it's time to rebuild the foundation, not just for your finances, but for your future. Welcome to the beginning of your transformation. This is where the real journey starts. Chapter 2. The Foundation. Building your freedom mindset. There comes a moment in every person's life when they realize that the walls holding them back were never really walls at all. They were beliefs, invisible, powerful, unquestioned beliefs. For years you might have thought money was the problem. Not enough of it, too much of it slipping away, never quite arriving when you needed it. But the truth is simpler, and far more profound. The foundation of your financial life isn't built in your bank account. It's built in your mind. You can't grow beyond what you believe is possible. And you can't hold on to wealth if your mind still believes you're meant to struggle for it. The greatest secret of financial freedom is this: your outer world always catches up to your inner world. Every dollar earned, every opportunity missed, every risk taken or avoided, all of it begins with belief. So let's start there. Not with numbers, not with budgets, but with you. Because if your mindset isn't built on freedom, no amount of money will ever make you feel free. When I was younger, I met a man who worked harder than anyone I knew. He woke before dawn, stayed late, and sacrificed everything for the security of his family. But no matter how much he earned, it was never enough. He lived with constant anxiety, afraid of losing what little progress he'd made. One day, I asked Tim, "What would it take for you to finally feel safe?" He paused, then said quietly, "I don't know. I don't think I'll ever feel safe." That answer changed me, because it showed the truth most people never face. The lack of safety wasn't in his finances, it was in his mind. He had built his life on fear, not freedom. And fear will always find a way to make even abundance feel like scarcity. So let me ask you a question. What is your financial story built on? Is it built on fear, the fear of losing, of failing, of not having enough? Or is it built on faith, faith in your ability to create, to adapt, to grow? The difference between those two mindsets is the difference between survival and freedom. You see, wealth is not just about strategy, it's about identity. You can't create what you don't believe you deserve. And so many of us are still living with inherited beliefs about money that were never ours to keep. Maybe you grew up hearing that money was hard to get, that rich people were selfish, that saving is safer than investing, or that wanting more somehow makes you ungrateful. But let me tell you something. Those beliefs are not laws. They're habits of thought, stories passed down, repeated so often they began to sound like truth. Your first act of freedom is to question them. Every single one. Because if your parents struggled, that doesn't mean you must. If society taught you that comfort is enough, that doesn't mean growth is greed. And if fear told you to stay small, you do not have to listen. You are allowed to rewrite the script. You are allowed to say that story stops with me. And that's where your new foundation begins. When you start to see money not as a source of stress, but as a tool for expansion, everything changes. You stop asking, how do I get more, and start asking, how can I grow into someone who can handle more? That single shift in mindset is the gateway to freedom, because when you grow, your world grows with you. When you expand your vision, opportunities appear that were invisible before. And when you begin to trust your ability to create value instead of fearing lack, you begin to attract abundance naturally, without force. Let's take this even deeper. Your thoughts create feelings. Your feelings create actions. Your actions create results. So if you believe money is hard to earn, how will you feel? Tense, stressed, defensive. And how will you act? You'll hesitate. You'll play small. You'll take fewer risks. And what will your results be? Exactly what you expected, not enough. But if you believe money flows easily to you because you provide real value, you'll feel confident, creative, open. You'll act with courage. You'll make bold decisions. And soon enough, your results begin to mirror that belief. It always begins with thought. So let's plant a new one. Money flows through me, not against me. It's not something I chase. It's something I attract, through purpose, effort, and trust. When you believe that, your entire energy changes. You stop fighting for money and start partnering with it. You begin to see it as a reflection of your growth, not the source of your worth. And the more you grow, the more naturally it follows. Now don't mistake this for wishful thinking. Mindset without action is fantasy, but mindset with action, that's power. Because once you shift what you believe, every choice you make carries new intention. You'll find yourself thinking differently, spending differently, speaking differently. You'll set boundaries. You'll stop apologizing for wanting more. You'll stop saying, I can't afford that, and start saying, how can I create the income for that? You'll stop shrinking to fit inside old definitions of realistic. That's the mindset of freedom. The quiet conviction that you are the builder of your life, not its victim. So if you want a foundation strong enough to hold your wealth, you must pour it with self-belief, clarity, and gratitude. Gratitude, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally understand that everything is possible. Let's pause on that. Everything is possible. That's not motivation, that's truth. Every free person, every financially independent mind, every visionary you've ever admired, they weren't born with certainty. They built it. They failed, learned, adapted, and tried again. They made decisions guided not by fear but by growth. And with every failure they discovered that their mindset was the only part of the process they could truly control. That's the foundation. That's where real power lives, in what you choose to believe about yourself. So as you move through this journey, I want you to repeat a simple phrase whenever doubt creeps in. I am capable. I am creative. I am becoming the kind of person who attracts freedom naturally. Let that belief sink in, because that's who you're becoming. Someone who leads with faith instead of fear. When your mindset becomes strong enough, the world begins to bend in your favor, the noise quiets, the anxiety softens, and in that stillness you start to see clearly what your next steps must be. In the chapters ahead, we'll begin to turn this inner foundation into a tangible plan, to transform mindset into measurable progress, because belief is the root, but action is the growth. And when the two work together, financial freedom is no longer an idea, it becomes inevitable. So take a moment to feel that truth settle in your chest. This is no longer about surviving, this is about becoming. And now that your foundation is set, your beliefs awakened and your mindset aligned, you're ready to take the next step. In the next chapter, we'll turn intention into design. You'll learn how to define your vision with clarity, calculate your personal freedom number, and begin to shape the life you've always imagined, because the mind builds the map, but now it's time to walk the path. Chapter 3, The Blueprint, Defining Your Freedom Number. There's a moment, somewhere between dreaming and doing, when a person finally says to themselves, "Enough guessing, I want to know." Not hope, not wish, not someday. No, that's the moment everything changes, because up until that point, money feels like fog, mysterious, untouchable, always shifting. You think you're getting closer, but it keeps slipping just beyond your grasp. But the second you decide to define what freedom actually looks like, the fog begins to clear. So let's do that, right here, right now. Let's turn your vision of financial freedom into something real. The truth is, most people want freedom, but very few have ever defined what it actually means. They say things like, "I just want to be comfortable," or "I want to be rich," or "I want to retire early," but those words are vague, and vagueness is the enemy of progress. You cannot hit a target you can't see. So today, you're going to draw that target. You're going to give freedom a number, a shape, a heartbeat. This is what I call your freedom number. The amount of money it takes for you to live the life you truly want without financial stress. Not the life society told you to want, not the one that looks good on social media, the one that actually feels peaceful, meaningful, and yours. Take a moment and picture it. Where are you waking up? Who's beside you? What does your day look like when you're not trading your time for money anymore? Are you traveling, creating, volunteering, resting more, building something new? Whatever that life looks like, that's your vision. Now let's turn it into a blueprint. Your freedom number isn't some massive, unreachable figure. It's simply the monthly amount of income that covers your chosen lifestyle, your essentials, your comforts, and your dreams, without you having to constantly work for it. It's the number that allows you to live life on your terms. For some, that might be $5,000 a month. For others, it might be 10 or 20. There's no right answer, only your answer. The power comes not from the number itself, but from the clarity it gives you, because when you know your number, you can reverse engineer it, you can plan for it, you can build toward it step by step. Freedom stops being a fantasy and starts becoming a formula. Let's take an example. Imagine your ideal life costs $6,000 a month. Your mortgage, food, travel, healthcare, everything, all accounted for. That's $72,000 a year. Now the question becomes, how can you create systems, investments, or income streams that generate $72,000 without your constant effort? Suddenly the mountain doesn't look so high, it looks climbable, because now you can see the path. That's what defining your freedom number does. It transforms your dreams into direction. But here's what's even more important. The number isn't just about money, it's about meaning. When you build your financial life around your values, not your ego, you create alignment, and alignment creates peace. If you don't define your freedom, someone else will define it for you. The world will gladly sell you its version. Bigger houses, flashier cars, endless consumption dressed up as success. But if your freedom depends on impressing others, you'll never stop chasing. That's why this step matters so deeply, because when you define your number, you're taking back authorship of your own story. You're saying, "This is enough for me." And that declaration, that calm certainty, is where real wealth begins. Let me share something personal. Years ago, I thought freedom meant more clients, more money, more growth. I chased it relentlessly, and yes, I achieved a level of success. But somewhere along the way, I realized I'd built a cage that looked like a castle. My income was high, but so were my obligations. My calendar was full, but my heart was empty. And one day, sitting alone in a quiet cafe, I asked myself, what would my life look like if I stopped trying to impress anyone and started trying to feel alive again? That single question unraveled everything. I went back to the beginning, stripped it all down. I asked, how much do I actually need to live with joy, security, and purpose? The answer shocked me. It was less than half of what I thought. That was the day I found my freedom number, and with it came something money could never buy: peace. So I'll ask you the same question. What's your number? Not the one your boss thinks you need, not the one the world tells you to want, yours. And remember, freedom is not about excess. It's about choice. It's being able to decide how you spend your time, who you spend it with, and what you give your energy to. It's waking up every morning without that quiet gnawing anxiety whispering, "What if I can't keep up?" When you define your number, you quiet that voice. You give yourself a finish line to work toward, and from there you can design the roadmap to reach it. Let's make this tangible. Start by writing down 3 numbers. First, your basic living number, the amount you need each month to cover necessities, housing, food, bills, transportation, healthcare. Second, your comfort number, the amount that allows you to live well, to eat out sometimes, travel occasionally, invest in growth, and enjoy life. And finally, your freedom number, the one that allows you to live fully on your terms, without relying on active labor. Those 3 numbers are your map. They give you perspective, direction, and control, and once you know them, something powerful happens. Your mind starts working differently. Instead of drifting in uncertainty, it begins seeking solutions. You start thinking, what could I build, create or invest in that would generate this amount passively? That's how freedom begins, not with luck but with clarity, because clarity creates courage, and courage creates movement. You see, most people don't lack intelligence, they lack definition. Once you define your goal, you activate your subconscious mind to find the path. You'll notice opportunities you never saw before. You'll meet people, ideas and situations that align with your new vision. That's not magic, that's focus. The world opens up to those who know what they want, so define it, own it, say it out loud if you have to. This is what financial freedom looks like for me. And from that moment, every decision you make, every investment, every career move, every dollar spent, either brings you closer to that number, or further away from it. That kind of awareness is rare, and it's powerful, because once you can see your path, you can walk it with purpose. You can stop running, stop comparing, stop doubting. Your freedom is no longer abstract. It's measurable, it's achievable, it's yours. And when you reach it, when your income covers your life and your time becomes your own, that's when you'll realize something beautiful. You never wanted the money itself, you wanted the feeling that comes with it, peace, confidence, choice. That's what the freedom number gives you, not just a goal, but a direction, a compass pointing toward your best life, and that compass will guide every step ahead, because now that you've defined your destination, the next question becomes, how do you clear the road that leads there? In the next chapter, we'll confront the weight that slows most people down, debt, distraction, and financial clutter, and you'll learn how to break free from what drains your energy, so every step forward takes you closer to the life you just defined. The path is opening, you can see it now, and it begins with clarity. Chapter 4. The Great Unburdening. Releasing what weighs you down. There's a moment in every journey toward freedom when the weight you've been carrying finally becomes too heavy to ignore. It doesn't happen suddenly. It builds quietly. Every bill unpaid, every debt deferred, every purchase justified, every late-night worry about how will I make it work, adds another stone to the load. You don't even notice how much you're holding until one day, you realize you're exhausted, not from climbing, but from carrying. That's where most people live, dragging the invisible weight of financial clutter, debt and distraction through every day, pretending it's normal. But deep down, they know it isn't, because freedom cannot coexist with constant weight. This chapter is about release, the great unburdening. It's not glamorous. It's not about making millions or chasing new income streams. It's about reclaiming your energy, your focus, and your peace by clearing what no longer serves you. Because before you can run toward freedom, you must first loosen what ties you to the ground. Debt, obligation, chaos. They are the anchors that keep you from taking flight. But here's the truth that most people never hear. Financial clutter isn't just about money. It's emotional. It's psychological. It's spiritual. Every dollar you owe carries energy. Every unnecessary expense steals a little attention. Every unmade decision, every unopened bill, every credit card statement you avoid, they all whisper the same message. You're not in control, and those whispers build into noise. So let's quiet the noise. Let's reclaim your control. The first step is awareness, facing what's actually there. This is the hardest part, but it's also the most liberating. You can't heal what you won't look at. You can't clean a room with the lights off. So turn them on. Pull everything into the open. List every debt, every recurring charge, every hidden subscription, every loan, every expense that's quietly draining you. Don't flinch. Don't judge. Just face it. Because the moment you see it, you start taking your power back. It's easy to think debt is just numbers on a page, but in truth, it's a story. One about how we've traded moments of comfort for years of obligation. And sometimes, those choices made sense. Sometimes, they were made in survival, not greed. There's no shame in that. But the key now is to rewrite the story, to decide that this chapter of your life will not end in exhaustion, but in freedom. So how do we begin? We start by releasing, physically and mentally, everything that does not move us toward that freedom number we defined in the last chapter. Every dollar must have a purpose. Every payment must bring peace, not panic. Ask yourself, does this expense serve my freedom or my ego? Does it add to my peace or to my pressure? You'll be surprised how often the answer reveals what's been silently draining you. Now let's talk about debt, the heaviest of all weights. Debt thrives in avoidance. It feeds on silence. The longer we ignore it, the more it multiplies, not just in balance, but in emotion. But here's the shift. Debt doesn't define you. It's not a measure of your worth, intelligence, or capability. It's simply a decision from the past that your present self has the power to transform. The key is to face it with clarity and calm, not shame or fear, because when you meet your debts with a plan instead of panic, they lose their grip on you. Start by organizing them. List every one, the smallest credit card, the biggest loan, the quiet balance you've been pretending isn't there. See them, name them, bring them into the light, then prioritize. Not all debts are equal. Some suffocate faster than others. Focus on the ones that cost you the most in interest, or the ones that weigh on your spirit the heaviest. And then this is where transformation begins. Channel every ounce of extra energy, creativity and determination toward removing that first weight. Not because it's logical, because it's emotional. The first debt you eliminate doesn't just clear a balance, it creates momentum, and momentum changes everything. Because when you feel what freedom from one burden tastes like, you'll crave more of it, and that craving becomes fuel. Now let's talk about clutter, the invisible kind that hides in plain sight, the forgotten subscriptions, the unused membership, the online cart purchases that felt like therapy for 5 minutes. They add up, not just financially, but mentally. Every recurring expense is a little thread tied to your freedom. Cut enough of them, and suddenly you can breathe again. So here's your next step. Audit your life. Go through every bill, every app, every account. If it doesn't serve your peace, your purpose, or your progress, cancel it. It's not deprivation, it's liberation. Because simplicity isn't about having less, it's about needing less. The less noise you have in your financial life, the clearer your path becomes. The clearer your path, the faster you move toward freedom. And here's the secret most people overlook. Every dollar you save in clutter can be redirected into power. Power to pay off debt faster. Power to invest. Power to breathe. You don't need to earn twice as much to feel free. You often just need to stop leaking what you already have. But there's another kind of clutter we must talk about. The emotional kind. The guilt that whispers, you should have known better. The fear that says you'll never catch up. The shame that convinces you to stay silent. You must release those too. Because you can't build wealth from a place of self-blame. You can't move forward while anchored in regret. Forgive your past self. Thank them, even, because they got you this far. They survived. They tried. They learned. Now it's your turn to rise. This chapter isn't about fixing everything overnight. It's about shifting the energy, from chaos to clarity, from shame to power. When you begin clearing the clutter, something incredible happens. You start to feel lighter. Your mind quiets. Your confidence grows. You realize that freedom isn't waiting for you at the top of the mountain. It's in every single step where you choose intention over impulse. The great unburdening isn't just financial, it's personal. It's reclaiming your story from the noise of distraction. It's saying, I will no longer carry what does not belong to me. And when you reach that moment, when you look around and realize you've simplified your life to only what matters, you'll feel something profound. Space. peace, possibility. That's the space where transformation begins, because now your energy isn't consumed by the past. It's free to build your future. You've cleared the weight, you've reclaimed your power, and with that clarity, you're ready for the next step, turning your momentum into growth. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to take this newfound energy and channel it into building assets that work for you, not against you, because once the weight is gone, the path ahead doesn't just look different, it feels limitless. You've let go of what was holding you down. Now it's time to rise. Chapter 5. Building the Engine. Turning Income into Power. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You've set down your old burdens. The clutter, the chaos, the noise of debt and distraction are gone. For the first time in a long time, the air feels light. You're standing in an open field, and before you lies possibility, wide, untamed, waiting. This is where real wealth begins, because once you've unburdened yourself from what holds you back, the next question isn't how much you can earn, it's how much you can build. There's a powerful difference between income and wealth. Income is a stream. It flows in, it flows out, and if you're not careful, it vanishes as quickly as it came. Wealth, on the other hand, is a reservoir. It gathers, deepens, and expands, quietly, consistently, over time. This chapter is about learning how to build that reservoir, how to take the flow of income in your life and turn it into a system that works for you, one that creates stability, strength, and freedom, not stress. It begins with one truth. Money is energy, and like all energy, it needs direction. If you don't give your money a purpose, it will find one for you, usually through impulse, distraction, or someone else's priorities. So, let's create a system, a living, breathing engine that ensures every dollar you earn moves with intention, not accident. Let's start simple. Every dollar that comes into your life has 3 possible destinations: to live, to grow, or to give. To live means the essentials: the roof, the food, the transportation, the necessities that sustain you. To grow means investments, not just in stocks or property, but in yourself, your skills, your business, your future potential. And to give, that's your contribution, your gratitude in action. It reminds you that wealth is not just accumulation, but circulation. The healthiest financial lives keep all 3 in harmony. When you give everything to living, you survive but never expand. When you give everything to growing, you may build wealth, but lose your joy. When you give everything away, you may find meaning but struggle to sustain it. Balance is the foundation of power, but balance doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. So here's your next step: create your system. Your blueprint doesn't have to be complicated, it simply needs to be intentional. You might start with something like this: 50% of every dollar for living, 30% for growth, 10% for giving, and 10% for freedom. A personal reserve that's yours to build security, opportunity, or simply peace of mind. The numbers don't matter as much as the discipline does, because once you give structure to your income, you take back control of your financial destiny. You stop reacting to money and start directing it. Think of it like an engine, one that gets more efficient the longer it runs. At first, it takes effort to fuel it, to track it, to stay consistent. But over time, it begins to generate its own momentum. Momentum creates freedom. When your system becomes habit, something shifts inside you. You no longer feel the chaos of too little or the anxiety of too much. You know where every dollar belongs, and more importantly, you know why. Now, let's talk about growth, the most misunderstood part of financial power. Growth isn't just about investing in the market, it's about investing in multipliers, choices that make your future bigger than your present. Sometimes that's an asset, a stock, a rental property, a side business. But often the greatest multiplier is you. Skills are the most powerful form of wealth creation in the modern world. The ability to solve problems, to adapt, to create, these are assets that never lose value. So before you chase the next investment trend, ask yourself, What skill could I build that multiplies my earning power for life? Maybe it's communication. Maybe it's leadership. Maybe it's learning to sell, or to code, or to teach. Whatever it is, know this: investing in yourself is not an expense. It's the seed of every financial transformation that will follow. Now, once you've built your engine and started growing, something magical happens. You start to experience financial confidence. The quiet knowing that your money is moving in alignment with your vision. You're no longer hustling for every dollar or chasing the next paycheck. You've built rhythm, flow, and in that rhythm, you'll find peace. But let's pause here, because peace doesn't come from numbers alone. It comes from meaning. That's where the third part of the system, giving, becomes essential. We live in a culture that glorifies accumulation. But true freedom isn't about how much you keep. It's about what your wealth allows you to express. When you give, whether through money, time, or kindness, you remind yourself that abundance isn't scarcity delayed, it's gratitude lived. You tell the universe, I have enough, I am enough. And that statement, spoken through action, creates a kind of wealth that no bank can measure. Now here's the paradox. The more you give with intention, the more life gives back to you. Not in superstition, but in reality, because generosity keeps your energy open, your perspective grounded, and your purpose clear. Wealth without meaning is noise. Wealth with meaning becomes harmony. So as your system grows, remember this: the goal is not to own more, but to need less. Not to control everything, but to align everything. When your money reflects your values, every dollar becomes an act of integrity. Every decision becomes an affirmation of who you are and what you stand for. That's when income transforms into power. Because power isn't about domination, it's about direction. It's the ability to guide your life with clarity, purpose, and peace. And that's the essence of this chapter. Structure is freedom. Freedom isn't chaos. Freedom isn't randomness. Freedom is the calm that comes from knowing your foundation is solid, your path is intentional, and your resources are working for you, not against you. Let's take a moment to imagine what that feels like. You wake up in the morning, not with dread or pressure, but with quiet confidence. You know where your money is going. You know what your priorities are. And every financial decision, no matter how small, aligns with your purpose. That's not luck. That's design. That's the result of turning income into power, of mastering your system instead of being mastered by it. And as that system strengthens, it becomes more than just a tool. It becomes a force that supports your dreams, protects your peace, and expands your possibilities. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to take that foundation, that engine you've built, and start creating wealth that lasts. Not wealth that comes and goes with market cycles, but wealth that sustains generations, creates freedom of time, and allows you to live fully in alignment with your purpose. You've built the engine, now it's time to make it unstoppable. Chapter 6. Wealth that works while you rest. There comes a moment, somewhere along your financial journey, when the meaning of freedom changes. In the beginning, freedom means escape, escaping debt, escaping struggle, escaping the constant pressure of not having enough. But as you move forward, as you build your foundation, freedom begins to take a new form. It stops being about escape, and it starts being about expansion. True freedom is not just the ability to live without worry, it's the ability to let your wealth move, grow, and create even while you rest. That's what this chapter is about. The shift from earning money with your time to building wealth that works without your time. It's the difference between running on a treadmill and owning the path. Let's begin with this truth. If every dollar you earn depends on your direct effort, your hours, your energy, your presence, then your wealth is limited by the number of days you can stay awake. You can work harder, sure. You can take on more, push further, grind longer, but there comes a point when your time runs out. Your energy, your health, your passion, all finite. So if your income lives and dies with your effort, then you are not free. You are simply well paid and still trapped. Freedom begins when your money starts working harder than you do. Think of your wealth as a team. Right now, maybe you're the only one on it, showing up every day, doing all the work, carrying the load. But imagine if you could recruit more players. Each dollar becomes a worker, each investment a new employee, and your only job is leadership. That's the essence of wealth that works while you rest. Systems that multiply your energy. Let's make this practical. There are only 3 true ways to make money. You work for it, your money works for it, or your ideas work for it. Most people spend their entire lives stuck in the first one, trading time for money. The wealthy learn to master the other 2. Your money works for you through investments, assets that grow, produce, and multiply, and your ideas work for you through systems, businesses, intellectual property, creative ventures that earn while you sleep. It's not about getting rich overnight, it's about building leverage. Leverage is the art of detaching income from effort. It's when your creativity, your discipline, or your capital start to create results that continue even when you stop moving. Let's start with the most familiar form of leverage, investment income. When you invest, you're saying, I'm willing to let my money work shifts for me. But here's what most people get wrong. Investing isn't gambling, it's stewardship. It's about assigning your dollars to do meaningful work. When you invest in stocks, you're letting your money partner with businesses that are growing, innovating, serving the world. When you invest in real estate, you're letting your money take shape as property, something tangible, useful, enduring. When you invest in your own business or craft, you're letting your creativity compound. The key is not just to invest, but to invest intentionally. Don't chase what's popular, build what's purposeful. Because every investment should align with your values, your timeline, and your peace of mind. If an opportunity keeps you awake at night, it's not an investment, it's anxiety wearing a suit. Real wealth builders focus on patience, not prediction. They plant seeds, and let time do what time does best, compound. Because compounding is not just a financial concept, it's a spiritual one. It's the universe rewarding consistency. Every dollar invested wisely today becomes a silent ally working on your behalf tomorrow. And over time, those allies multiply quietly, faithfully, relentlessly. That's how wealth grows while you rest. But investments aren't the only path to passive growth. There's another, equally powerful form of leverage, intellectual wealth. We live in an age where ideas can out-earn effort. A single digital course, a published book, a patent, a song, a software program, even a personal brand, these are all modern assets. They take effort to create once, but they continue to generate value long after you've moved on to something new. And the beauty of intellectual wealth is that it's accessible to anyone willing to share what they know, create what they love, or solve a problem that matters. It doesn't require millions, it requires courage. Courage to believe that your knowledge, your creativity, and your story have value. The world is full of people waiting for permission to build. But wealth doesn't wait for permission, it responds to creation. When you create something that serves others, you open a channel through which abundance flows naturally. Now, let's address an important truth. Not all rest is laziness. Building wealth that works while you rest isn't about doing nothing. It's about creating systems that allow you to focus on what matters most. Your purpose, your health, your relationships, your peace. Because what good is wealth if it costs you your joy? What's the point of freedom if you're too exhausted to feel it? Rest is not the opposite of productivity, it's part of it. It's the space where clarity, creativity, and wisdom grow. When your systems are strong, rest becomes productive. Because your wealth keeps moving even when you don't. That's when you realize, financial freedom isn't just about money, it's about time ownership. Time is the most precious currency you have. It can't be earned back, it can't be borrowed, but it can be multiplied through the systems you build, the assets you own, and the people you empower. So ask yourself, what in your life could be automated, delegated, or simplified? What systems could you create that would free your time without sacrificing your vision? Maybe it's automating your savings and investments, so growth happens effortlessly. Maybe it's hiring help for your business, so you can focus on strategy, not survival. Maybe it's setting boundaries that protect your energy from being scattered in too many directions. Remember this, Your wealth will never grow beyond your ability to trust the process. Control can feel comforting, but it often becomes the cage that keeps you from scaling. Trust is the soil where freedom takes root. When you trust your system, your investments, and your plan, you no longer chase, you attract, and that's when your wealth begins to expand quietly, peacefully, even in your absence. So tonight when you rest, remind yourself, you're not starting over, you're not falling behind, your wealth is still moving, still growing, still working, because you've built it to do so. That's the beauty of financial mastery. It frees you not just to live, but to live full. In the next chapter, we'll explore what it means to protect and preserve that freedom, how to safeguard your growing wealth, your time, and your peace from the world's constant pull. Because true wealth isn't about what you gain, it's about what you keep, and the life you create from. You've built the foundation, you've built the engine, now your wealth works while you rest, and soon, you'll learn how to make it last forever. Chapter 7. Protecting what you've built. There's a quiet kind of fear that comes after success. It's not the fear of failure anymore, it's the fear of loss. The fear that what you've worked so hard to create could slip away, that the peace, the freedom, the progress could vanish overnight. It's the moment you realize that building wealth was only half the journey. The other half is learning to protect it. Because creation is an act of passion, but preservation is an act of wisdom. And the truth is, the world doesn't just hand you peace, you have to guard it. You have to learn how to stand watch over your time, your energy, your finances, and your freedom. In this chapter we explore the art of protection, not from a place of fear, but from a place of respect. Respect for what you've built, respect for what it cost you to get here, and respect for the future you're still creating. Let's begin with this simple truth. Wealth without protection is like a castle without walls. It might look impressive, but it's vulnerable to every storm. And storms, my friend, will come. The economy will shift, markets will fluctuate, people will change, even you will evolve. The goal isn't to avoid uncertainty, it's to prepare for it, because security doesn't come from control. It comes from clarity. Let's talk about clarity, the first pillar of protection. Clarity means knowing where your wealth is, how it's working, and why it exists. It's the difference between managing money reactively and leading it intentionally. When you have clarity, you stop being surprised by your finances. You start seeing patterns, anticipating outcomes, and making choices that protect your future rather than just preserve your past. Clarity begins with awareness, knowing what you own, what you owe, what you spend, and what you save. You can't guard what you can't see, so take inventory, not just of your assets, but of your habits, because your financial habits are the real guards at the gate. Protection isn't just about insurance policies and legal documents, though those matter too. It's about discipline. It's about boundaries. It's about saying no to distractions that look like opportunities, and yes to decisions that may feel slow, but are strong. Every wise builder knows, fast growth attracts fast loss, but steady growth builds structures that last. Now let's talk about boundaries. We often think of boundaries as limitations, but in truth, they're protection lines, the invisible fences that keep your garden from being trampled. You need boundaries around your time, because as your wealth grows, so will the number of people who want access to it and to you. Not all invitations are opportunities. Some are detours dressed as dreams. You need boundaries around your energy, because exhaustion is expensive. If you let burnout lead your decisions, you'll trade peace for productivity and end up bankrupt in spirit. And yes, you need boundaries around your finances, because not every investment deserves your trust, and not every partnership deserves your participation. Boundaries don't mean you live in fear, they mean you live with focus. There's another form of protection that's often overlooked: legacy planning. Most people avoid thinking about it because it feels distant, maybe even uncomfortable. But legacy planning isn't about death, it's about continuity. It's about ensuring that what you've built keeps working, serving, and growing long after you step away. Legacy is how you turn success into significance. It's how you protect not just your money but your meaning. So ask yourself, what will your wealth do when you're no longer here to direct it? Who will it serve? What story will it tell? Because your wealth carries your values, and protecting your wealth is also protecting your message to the next generation. Now there's a deeper layer of protection that goes beyond the tangible. It's emotional wealth protection. Money can multiply your freedom, but it can also magnify your fears. When you've worked hard to create stability, even small risks can feel threatening. But the goal isn't to hide from risk, it's to manage it with wisdom, not emotion. Learn to separate the temporary noise of the world from the timeless truth of your vision. Not every market dip is a crisis. Not every opportunity missed is a mistake. When you build your foundation on patience and purpose, short-term turbulence won't shake you. Your peace is your greatest asset. Guard it fiercely. And remember, protection doesn't mean isolation. It means partnership. You don't have to guard your wealth alone. Build a team of people who know what you don't. Advisors, mentors, accountants, lawyers, not to control your money but to safeguard it. Wisdom grows best in community. Isolation breeds blind spots. And blind spots are where wealth quietly leaks away. But even beyond financial systems and safety nets, there's one protector that matters most. You, your mindset, your perspective, your ability to adapt and stay calm when life changes course. Because no matter how strong your systems, wealth can still be lost through fear-driven choices. Protect your mind from scarcity. Protect your heart from comparison. Protect your purpose from distraction. When your inner world is guarded, your outer world naturally follows. Here's the quiet truth. Wealth doesn't disappear because of one bad day. It fades when you stop paying attention. The same is true of peace, joy and purpose. Neglect is the enemy of abundance. So be the kind of steward who watches with gratitude, not anxiety, who manages with wisdom, not worry, who understands that protecting wealth isn't about hoarding it, it's about honoring it. Because what you honor you keep. And here's something beautiful. When you learn to protect what you have, you become ready for more. The universe trusts responsible hands. Life gives more to those who take care of what they already hold. So guard your wealth, but don't grip it in fear. Hold it with peace. Let it serve. Let it breathe. Let it flow. Because the purpose of protection isn't to build walls, it's to create longevity. Protection gives your freedom a future. And as we move into the next chapter, we'll explore what comes after protection, multiplication, how to take what you've built, what you've preserved, and allow it to expand in ways that impact more lives, create more purpose, and generate more peace. Because wealth that is protected can finally begin to grow without limits. And growth, when guided by wisdom, becomes legacy in motion. You've learned to build it. You've learned to let it work while you rest. You've learned to guard it. Now it's time to let it multiply. Chapter 8. The Multiplication of Meaning. Growth is not about getting more, it's about becoming more. There's a moment, subtle but unmistakable, when you realize that wealth, no matter how vast, no longer fills you the way it once did. The numbers grow, the accounts expand, but your soul begins to whisper, there must be more than this. And that whisper is not a sign of lack. It's a signal of readiness. You've mastered creation. You've learned protection. Now you're being invited into multiplication, not of things but of meaning. True multiplication begins the moment you stop asking, how much can I make? And start asking, how much can I give? It's the shift from accumulation to amplification, from success to significance, because wealth is not measured by what you store, but by what you set in motion. When your resources begin to flow with purpose, everything you've built takes on new life. Picture this: a single candle lighting another. It loses nothing of its own flame, yet the room becomes twice as bright. That's the essence of true multiplication. Light shared is never light lost. To multiply your wealth, you must first multiply your intention. Why do you want more? Is it for comfort or contribution, security or expansion? When your why is rooted in service, growth becomes sustainable. Because energy given in love always returns multiplied. Let's begin where most people never do, with mindset. Multiplication begins in thought, not in action, because the way you think about abundance determines how you allow it to flow. If you see wealth as something to be hoarded, it will shrink to fit the smallness of your fear. But if you see it as something meant to circulate, to bless, to build, to elevate, it will grow in proportion to your willingness to release it. You see, life rewards movement. Stagnation is decay. Just as rivers purify through flow, wealth renews itself through giving, investing, and sharing. Multiplication is not just about money, it's about impact. When you mentor someone, when you teach what you've learned, when you lift another person's potential, you multiply yourself. Your knowledge becomes their foundation, your courage becomes their example, and your success becomes a seed that grows in soil you may never walk upon. That's multiplication, legacy unfolding in real time. But there's a deeper layer still. Multiplication requires detachment. It asks you to trust that letting go will not leave you empty, that every seed planted in generosity will return in ways no calculation can predict. The farmer who clings to every grain never harvests. Only the one who sows in faith ever reaps. In the same way, financial multiplication comes not from chasing outcomes, but from aligning with principles, stewardship, generosity, and vision. Think about the greatest empires, the strongest businesses, the most impactful movements. All of them grew because someone dared to extend their reach beyond their comfort zone. They reinvested, not just money, but belief. They saw potential where others saw limitation. And that's the heart of multiplication, the courage to expand your trust. Let's talk about reinvestment, not just financially but personally. When you reinvest in your growth, your education, your relationships, you amplify your capacity to create. Every skill learned, every connection nurtured, every moment of reflection adds depth to your wealth, and depth multiplies value. You see, it's not just what you earn, it's who you become while earning it. Because the wiser you are, the more effectively you can multiply everything entrusted to you. Now let's touch on something essential: generosity as strategy. Yes, generosity as strategy. Too often people think of giving as subtraction, but the truth is, generosity is one of the most powerful multipliers of all. When you give wisely to causes that align with your values, to people who will carry the energy forward, you create a ripple effect that extends far beyond your reach. Money given in alignment doesn't just leave your hand, it expands your influence. It builds bridges. It opens doors you never knew existed. And just as generosity multiplies outward, gratitude multiplies inward. Gratitude is the soil in which abundance takes root. It's the quiet practice that reminds you that what you already have is enough, and that enough is the foundation of more. A grateful heart doesn't cling, it receives, releases, and receives again. And that rhythm, that natural circulation, is where real multiplication happens. But remember, multiplication without meaning leads to emptiness. You can grow your net worth and lose your sense of worth if you forget why you're growing in the first place. So anchor your expansion in something bigger than yourself. Let every financial goal point toward a human purpose. Let your profits become pathways for others. Because in the end, multiplication isn't about empire, it's about ecosystem. When your wealth nourishes more than just your own needs, it becomes part of a living cycle that sustains you and everyone connected to you. Think of the great tree. They grow tall not to take from the light but to share it, creating shade, shelter, oxygen, and beauty for everything beneath them. That's what it means to multiply with purpose. And here's the most extraordinary part: the more you give, the more capable you become of giving. Abundance builds capacity. It teaches you that the true return on investment isn't in percentage points, it's in people, purpose, and peace. Multiplication is the moment wealth stops being about you and starts moving through you. It's where success transforms into service, where personal gain evolves into shared good. And in that transformation, something incredible happens. Fulfillment replaces fear, joy replaces striving. You no longer chase more, you create more. Not from hunger but from harmony. That's the art of multiplication, not the endless reaching for more, but the effortless flow of expansion guided by meaning. You become a conduit, not a container. You allow abundance to pass through you like light through glass, illuminating everything it touches. And when you live this way, the question is no longer how do I get, but how far can my impact go? Because at the deepest level, multiplication isn't a financial principle, it's a spiritual one. It's the universe responding to alignment, to stewardship, to open hands. It's life saying, because you've been faithful with what you have, here is more, not for you to keep, but for you to continue. And so we come to a quiet understanding. Wealth was never the end, it was the beginning. A tool, a language, a mirror. It showed you your strength, your discipline, your capacity to create, and now it invites you to use that capacity to shape the world around you. Because the highest form of abundance is not having everything you want, it's becoming someone who creates abundance wherever you go. That is multiplication, and as we move into the next chapter, we'll explore what lies beyond multiplication, the art of legacy, because when meaning multiplies across time, when your wealth begins to outlive you, that's when abundance becomes eternal. You've learned to create, you've learned to protect, you've learned to multiply. Now let's learn how to make it last forever. Chapter 9. The Weight of Legacy. Legacy begins in silence, not in the applause of achievement or the noise of success, but in the quiet question that lingers long after the world stops watching: what will remain of me when I am gone? That question doesn't whisper to the ego, it speaks to the soul. It doesn't ask how much you owned, but how deeply you mattered. And one day, you will feel it. That moment when accomplishment no longer feels like enough. When the climb itself begins to lose its meaning, unless it leads somewhere beyond you. That is the birth of legacy. Legacy isn't built by the loud, the rich, or the visible. It's built by those who live intentionally, who understand that every choice is a seed planted in time. Some seeds bloom in your lifetime. Others wait, silently, for a generation you'll never meet. And that's the beauty of legacy. You don't control when it grows. You only decide what you plant. Too many people confuse inheritance with legacy. Inheritance is what you leave for someone. Legacy is what you leave in them. Inheritance fades when spent. Legacy endures when remembered. Legacy is not made of money or monuments. It's made of moments. The small, often invisible decisions that shaped who you became. It's the kindness no one saw, the integrity that cost you something, the forgiveness you offered when bitterness felt easier. Because in the end, your greatest legacy won't be found in what you built. It will be reflected in who you built up. You see, every life touches another. Every word, every action, every expression of courage or fear, it all echoes. You are constantly teaching the world how to live by the way you live. Whether you realize it or not, someone is watching you and learning what's possible. That's why legacy begins now, not someday. It's not a chapter you write in old age. It's written every day in real time, through the way you show up. So ask yourself, what are you teaching through the way you live? Are you teaching resilience or resignation? Gratitude or entitlement? Love or fear? Because your life is always speaking, even when you are silent. Legacy is not a burden. It's a privilege. It's the awareness that you are part of a continuum far greater than yourself. You are the bridge between ancestors and descendants, between what was and what will be, and your choices today ripple outward, shaping tomorrows you may never see. That's why the most powerful legacy is rooted in values, not victories. Money fades, titles disappear, but values, those unseen currents of the soul, flow through generations like a living river. If your wealth dies with you, it was never wealth at all. If your impact ends when you do, it was never legacy. To build legacy is to live consciously, to live with the end in mind, not in fear of it, but in honor of it. There's a profound clarity that comes when you realize that everything you have is temporary. Every possession, every accolade, every chapter of your story, all of it will one day belong to someone else, or to time itself. But who you become through those things, that's eternal. Legacy is not about being remembered. It's about ensuring that something worth remembering continues to live on. Think of the mentors who shaped you, the voices, the examples, the quiet hands that guided you forward. Most of them will never be written in history books, yet their fingerprints are all over the person you've become. That's the miracle of legacy. It multiplies through lives, not through ledgers. To build a lasting legacy, you must learn to release control. You must trust that the seeds you plant in people, in purpose, in love, will find their way into the right soil, even if you never see them bloom. Because legacy isn't about outcomes, it's about faith. Faith that good endures. Faith that light travels further than you can imagine. Some people try to design legacy as if it were a business plan, measurable, predictable, perfectly executed. But legacy is organic. It breathes. It surprises. It grows in ways you could never anticipate. It's not about creating perfection. It's about creating continuation. And to create that, you must live from principle. Be generous when it's inconvenient. Be kind when it's undeserved. Be honest when it's unpopular. These are not small acts. They are the architecture of eternity. Legacy is not carved in marble. It's written in moments of courage. When you stand for something that matters. When you love without guarantee. When you choose to forgive, to rise, to keep going. Those are the moments that echo. And yet legacy is not just about others. It's also the story you leave behind for yourself. When you look back, will you see a life that was merely long, or one that was truly alive? Will you see a story driven by fear, or a story defined by faith? Legacy doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for presence. To be here, fully, not chasing immortality, but giving meaning to mortality. Because here's the truth. You can't take anything with you, but you can leave everything behind in the right hearts. Every act of love becomes an inheritance of strength. Every lesson shared becomes a roadmap for someone's tomorrow. Every boundary held becomes a model for self-worth. That's how legacy breathes, through those who continue where you left off. So what does it mean, truly, to build a legacy of abundance? It means your wealth doesn't stop with accumulation or even multiplication. It evolves into continuation. It means your success outlives your presence, because it was never about you alone. You plant trees whose shade you may never sit beneath. You fund dreams you'll never see fulfilled. You inspire courage in people whose names you'll never know. And somehow that becomes enough, more than enough. Because in giving the best of yourself to something greater than yourself, you become timeless. This is the quiet truth the world often forgets. Legacy is not what you leave behind, it's what you leave within. And that truth frees you. It frees you from the race for recognition. It frees you from the fear of being forgotten. Because you realize you were never meant to be remembered for what you did but for what you gave. That is the weight of legacy and the lightness of it too. You are here in this moment, shaping a future that will one day call your name without ever knowing your face. And when it does, may it whisper one thing. They lived with purpose. They gave with love. And because of them the world is better. That is the ultimate abundance, when what you've built continues to give long after you've gone. And as we move forward, we'll step into the final chapter, the chapter of renewal. Because legacy doesn't end with death or departure. It continues in the cycle of creation, in the rebirth of purpose, in the timeless flow of giving and becoming. Legacy is not the end, it's the beginning of forever. Chapter 10, The Art of Renewal. Every ending carries a heartbeat. A rhythm that doesn't signal death, but transformation. Something ends, yes, but something else awakens, quietly beneath the surface. Like the moment winter releases its hold and the first breath of spring touches the air. That pause between the last cold wind and the first bloom, that's where renewal lives. Renewal is not a restart. It's not about erasing the past or pretending it didn't happen. It's about integrating it. Taking what once broke you, what once defined you, and turning it into the raw material of new life. It's about remembering that destruction and creation are never separate forces. They dance together, endlessly. You've walked through the storms. You've watched versions of yourself fade, like old photographs losing their color. You've outgrown identities that once felt permanent. And now, here you stand, at the edge of something you can't yet name. That's renewal. The sacred threshold between who you were and who you are becoming. But here's the secret. Renewal doesn't arrive with fanfare. It whispers, it doesn't shout, "Now you are new." It simply invites you to notice that you no longer carry what once weighed you down, that the fears that used to rule you now merely pass through you like clouds, that the wounds that once defined you have softened into wisdom. Renewal is not about chasing the light. It's about realizing you are the light. even in the dark. Every experience, every heartbreak, every loss, every silence, was a classroom. Each one teaching you a language of resilience you didn't know you could speak. And now, you speak it fluently. Without even realizing it, you've been reborn. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You stopped waiting for permission to live. You stopped needing validation to feel worthy. You stopped mistaking survival for fulfillment. That is renewal, not a new beginning but a deeper becoming. Think of a forest after a fire. At first glance, it looks ruined. Ash, silence, emptiness. But beneath the soil, life is already reorganizing. Seeds that could only germinate through heat begin to awaken. The destruction was not an end, it was a preparation. And so it is with you. The fires in your life were not punishments, they were portals. Every time something burned away, an identity, a relationship, a dream, it cleared space for truth, space for what was always meant to live inside you but couldn't, until you released what wasn't. Renewal asks for one thing: surrender. Not the kind of surrender that means giving up, but the kind that means giving in to life, to change, to the flow of what's next. It asks you to stop fighting the current, and to trust that the river knows its course, because it does. Sometimes renewal looks quiet, like rest, reflection, stillness. Sometimes it looks fierce, like breaking patterns, setting boundaries, or walking away. Sometimes it's not beautiful, it's messy and unclear. But renewal doesn't need to be pretty, it only needs to be honest. The truth is, the old version of you did the best it could. It carried dreams that were heavy and fears that were loud. It made mistakes that taught you mercy. It loved, it lost, it learned. Honor that version, don't bury it in shame or regret. It was the foundation for the person you are now, the one listening to these words with an open heart and a clearer mind. This, right now, is your emergence. The moment you choose to stop dragging the past behind you like a shadow, and instead weave it into your life. Renewal begins when you realize you can stop apologizing for evolving. You can outgrow people without abandoning love. You can change directions without betraying your purpose. You can redefine success without losing your ambition. You can start over, not because you failed, but because you've learned. You've earned the right to begin again, and this time you do it consciously. No longer out of desperation or fear, but out of deep alignment. You are no longer reacting to life, you are creating it. You're no longer seeking completion in others, you've found wholeness in yourself. That is the quiet revolution of renewal. When you begin to live from that space, from presence, not pressure, everything shifts. Peace replaces urgency, purpose replaces confusion. Joy returns, not as a fleeting guest, but as a permanent companion. You realize that you were never lost, you were only unfolding, and every chapter that felt like an ending was simply preparing you for this one. You are proof that endings can be sacred, that brokenness can become art, that stillness can be strength, and when you understand that, you begin to live in rhythm with the universe, in harmony with the eternal cycle of rise, fall, rest and renewal. So let this be your reminder. You don't need to start from scratch, you only need to start from truth. You don't need to chase what's gone, you only need to nurture what's growing. The path forward isn't about reinventing yourself, it's about remembering yourself, the self that existed before fear, before comparison, before you forgot your own life. Renewal is the art of returning, not to who you were but to who you've always been beneath the noise. And that is where abundance becomes freedom, because renewal is not about having more, it's about being more aware, more awake, more alive. So breathe, stand where you are, not as someone waiting to arrive, but as someone who already has. You've shed, you've healed, you've grown, you've honored the cycle, you've completed one journey, and opened the door to another. And as you step into what's next, remember this: renewal is not a one-time event, it is a lifelong rhythm, an eternal return to the truth of who you are. Every sunrise will remind you, every breath will renew you, every choice will rebirth you. And so, the story doesn't end here, it begins again, not with struggle, but with grace, not with seeking, but with knowing, not with noise but with peace, because you are not just living, you are becoming, endlessly. and that is the quiet power of renewal. Chapter 11. The courage to continue. There's a moment in every journey when the road ahead feels both infinite and uncertain. You've walked so far, changed so much, and yet, there it is again, that quiet whisper inside that asks, "Can I keep going?" Not because you doubt your strength, but because you've seen what growth truly costs. The truth is, transformation is not for the faint of heart. It demands courage, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that breathes through fear, holds steady through chaos, and keeps choosing to move forward even when the destination disappears from view. The courage to continue is not about perfection, it's about persistence. It's not about knowing the path. It's about trusting that one will appear beneath your feet with every step you take. You've already survived what you thought you couldn't. You've learned to rebuild in the aftermath of endings, to find meaning in the quiet between storms. But now, this chapter, this season calls for a deeper kind of bravery, the bravery to live fully, even when nothing feels certain. Courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the whisper that says, "Try again." Sometimes it's the decision to get out of bed when your heart still aches. Sometimes it's forgiving yourself for all the ways you didn't know better. It's choosing to open your heart again, even after it's been broken. That is the raw, unglamorous, beautiful truth of courage. You see, the world often celebrates the beginning, the leap, the first step, the breakthrough. But the real power lies in the continuation, the steady, unseen effort to keep showing up when no one's watching. The courage to continue is not about chasing constant progress, it's about honoring the process. Think of a mountain climber halfway to the peak. The air is thinner, the climb steeper, and turning back feels easier than pushing forward, but something in them, that quiet fire, keeps going. Not because the summit is promised, but because the climb itself is sacred. That's what courage is, the sacred commitment to keep becoming. It's in the artist who paints through rejection, the parent who keeps believing in a child's potential, the dreamer who dares to try again after every fall. Courage isn't about never breaking, it's about refusing to stay broken. And here's what most people forget: courage grows best in uncertainty. When everything feels clear and predictable, bravery sleeps. But when life strips away the illusion of control, courage wakes up. It becomes your companion, your heartbeat, your anchor in the unknown. You were never meant to walk through life fearless. Fear is natural, it's proof that something matters. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision that love, truth, and purpose matter more. And every time you act from that space, when you say yes to growth, when you stay open to life, when you trust the process, you become stronger, softer, wiser. The courage to continue means daring to live without guarantee, to keep your heart open in a world that sometimes forgets tenderness, to keep creating beauty even when it feels like no one sees it, to keep believing in something greater, not because it's easy, but because it's true. Maybe your courage right now looks like rebuilding your faith. Maybe it's letting go of what no longer fits. Maybe it's learning to receive love without walls. Whatever form it takes, courage is always personal and always sacred, because courage is not just the strength to endure, it's the grace to evolve. It's looking at your reflection and seeing not what you've lost, but what you've become. It's remembering that you are not behind, you are precisely where your next becoming begins. There will be days when continuing feels like too much, when the weight of uncertainty presses on your chest, when the noise of the world drowns out your inner voice. In those moments, pause, breathe, return to presence. You don't have to see the whole picture. You just need to take the next right step, and then the next, and the next. Because courage doesn't demand that you run, only that you refuse to stop moving. Every sunrise you've ever witnessed was born from darkness. Every beginning required an ending, and every step forward, no matter how small, reshapes your destiny. So trust the rhythm of your own becoming. Trust that the pauses are not failures, they are recalibrations. Trust that rest is not weakness, it's preparation. Trust that courage doesn't always roar, sometimes it simply remains, because the truth is, you are braver than you know. You've carried pain that once felt unbearable, and turned it into wisdom. You've faced moments of doubt and kept choosing love. You've fallen, but you've risen every time. The courage to continue isn't about being unbreakable. It's about knowing that even when you break, you rebuild differently, more beautifully, more consciously. So when fear whispers, "What if you fall?" answer, "Then I'll rise again." When doubt says, "You can't do this," whisper back, "Watch me." Because continuing is not about certainty, it's about devotion. Devotion to your own unfolding. And one day when you look back, you'll see that courage didn't just get you through, it became you. It shaped you into someone who knows that beginnings are easy, endings are inevitable, but continuing, that's where the magic lives. The courage to continue is not a destination, it's a way of being. It's the quiet promise you make to yourself, to stay open, to stay real, to stay alive in every sense of the word. So take this moment as a reminder, you don't have to have it all figured out, you only have to keep walking, heart first, truth intact, faith alive. Because your courage is not a flame that burns out, it's a sunrise that keeps returning, no matter how long the night has been. And as you step forward, remember, the story isn't finished, it's only deepening. And the next chapter, it belongs to the version of you who already knows how to continue. Chapter 12. The Return Home. There comes a moment at the end of every great journey when silence feels sacred. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of arrival. You've come so far through shadow and light, through breaking and becoming, and now, you stand at the edge of a truth that has been quietly waiting for you all along. Home was never somewhere you had to find. It was something you were always carrying within you. All the searching, all the striving, all the reaching for answers, it was never about becoming someone else. It was always about remembering who you are. The soul doesn't measure progress by how much you achieve or how far you go. It measures by how deeply you've learned to love, how honestly you've learned to live, and how fully you've learned to be here now. You see, the real destination was never the peak of the mountain. It was the deep exhale that comes when you finally understand that you belong. Not because you've earned it, but because you exist. Every challenge you faced shaped you. Every heartbreak broke something false. Every loss carved space for wisdom to grow. And every moment of courage, every time you stood back up, brought you one breath closer to yourself. You are no longer searching for the light, you have become it. Look back for a moment, not with regret, but with gratitude. All those versions of you who kept walking through uncertainty, who whispered just one more day when it felt impossible, they are the reason you're here now. Honor them, thank them, because they were the bridge between who you were and who you have become. This chapter, this final one, is not about endings. It's about integration. It's about bringing everything you've learned back into your life, into your relationships, into the small, ordinary moments where true transformation quietly takes root. You've learned that growth doesn't always look like fireworks and breakthroughs. Sometimes it looks like patience, like gentleness, like forgiving yourself for needing time. Sometimes it's the quiet choice to love again, to try again, to trust again. The real mastery of life isn't in controlling it, it's in surrendering to it. It's in realizing that peace was never hiding in the distance. It was waiting in the pauses you used to rush through. It was breathing with you the whole time. So now take a breath, a deep, unhurried breath. Let it fill your chest and remind you you are safe to rest here. You are safe to be. You no longer need to chase what is already within reach. You no longer need to prove what is already true. You no longer need to fight the rhythm of life, you are part of it. The return home is not about retreating from the world. It's about walking into it with new eyes, eyes that see meaning in the mundane, beauty in imperfection, and divinity in every breath. It's about living awake, fully, honestly, and without apology. You've learned that love is not a destination either. It's a presence. It's the quiet hand you hold through every season. It's the choice to remain open, even when it hurts, to remain kind, even when it's difficult, to remain real, even when the world tells you to hide. That's what it means to live from the heart, not to escape life's storms, but to walk through them without losing your center, To know that peace isn't the absence of chaos, it's the stillness you carry within it. And as this journey draws to a close, remember this: you are not the same person who began it. You have softened and strengthened at the same time. You've let go of what was never yours to hold and reclaimed what was always meant to be yours. Your essence, your truth, your life. You no longer need to search for your purpose. You are your purpose, living, breathing, becoming. Every moment you choose awareness, compassion, or courage, you are fulfilling it. Every time you show up as your truest self, you are already an. So let this final chapter be a beginning, not an ending, a quiet invitation to keep walking, not because you're incomplete, but because you are alive. And aliveness, my friend, is the greatest gift of all. Keep growing, not toward perfection, but toward presence. Keep learning not to fill your mind, but to awaken your heart. Keep loving, not because it's easy, but because it's what you were made for. The world needs what only you can give: your voice, your truth, your life. And when doubt comes again, as it surely will, remember what you've discovered here. You don't have to start over, you just have to return home. Home to the breath, home to the moment, home to yourself. The journey is not ending, it is expanding through you. And as you step into what comes next, may you walk gently, love deeply, and trust completely. Because everything you've been seeking, peace, meaning, belonging, has been here all along, within you, always.